everyone, and welcome to tonight's call with Congressman Johnny Olszewski. My name is Robin, and I'll be moderating the call this evening. This is a live interactive forum, and we'd love to hear from you tonight. During this evening's call, we'll be taking as many questions as possible from constituents like you. To make sure we hear from as many people as possible, we do ask that you keep your questions brief and to the point. If you would like to ask Congressman Olszewski a question this evening, please press *3 on your telephone keypad now or at any time during this call. You may also sign up for the Congressman's newsletter by pressing *6 at any time during the call. You may also subscribe to the Congressman's newsletter online at olszewski.house.gov. Again, please press *3 now to ask a question, and if you'd like to subscribe to the Congressman's newsletter, press *6. And if you're streaming the event this evening, simply submit your question by typing your name and your question below the streaming player. With that, I'd like to turn the call over to Congressman Johnny Olszewski. Congressman, you are live, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Robin, and good evening to everyone. I want to first say how much I appreciate you all taking time to join us tonight. It is an honor to represent you in Congress and to welcome you to tonight's town hall. This is our 5th official town hall since I was sworn in earlier this year, along with many other community forums that we have held across the district. My job is to represent you, to listen, to learn, and to fight for policies that support our Maryland families, to keep government working for the people, not the other way around. And while I'm grateful for the chance to connect with our constituents tonight, I do wish it were under better circumstances. We are now entering the 5th week of the government shutdown, day 28, the second longest in our nation's history. And we know that's not just a headline. Real people are hurting, including many of you on the line tonight. I know you're hurting because we are hearing from you. Our district is home to more than 22,000 federal workers, people who are keeping our government running, and many of whom tonight are wondering how they will pay their mortgages or put food on the table. As a reminder, my office has stayed fully open to serve you during this shutdown, as we continue to be available to help connect you to available resources. Earlier today, I joined Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott in announcing new food, rent, and child care assistance for furloughed workers. Governor Moore has announced no interest loan for those workers, and our community nonprofits continue to step up. Our civil servants are people. They are not political pawns. Yet sadly, even common sense measures to protect them have been caught up in partisanship. Just for one example, I introduced legislation a few weeks ago that would prevent furloughed federal workers from being laid off during the shutdown, to make it absolutely clear that we will not treat public servants as bargaining chips. Nearly 80 of my colleagues have signed on as co-sponsors, but not one has been from the other side of the aisle. That is disappointing, because protecting federal workers is essential to ensure that critical services continue running. Everything from food safety and air traffic control to Social Security and veterans benefits. Just last week, we learned that 1,400 additional employees who oversee our nation's nuclear arsenal have also been furloughed. That is a serious national security threat. Let me pause here for a quick reminder. If you'd like to ask a question, press *3 on your phone now. And if you're listening online, you can type your question in the comments section. As it relates to coming to a budget deal to reopen the government, my bright line is this. Once we shake hands, there can be no more unilateral cuts, no more illegal firings. This administration has already canceled $9 billion from the last bipartisan budget, including key infrastructure projects right here in Maryland, all as part of a targeted effort to withhold funds from Democratic-led states and Democratic-led districts. That's not who we are as Americans, and I think we are better than that. I'm also deeply concerned about the administration's explicit threats to withhold funding to rebuild the Key Bridge, a bridge that is vital to our local economy and the 35,000 commuters who rely on it every day. At the same time, we are facing real pressure from rising healthcare costs. Inaction here is not an option. We need bipartisan reforms that bring down premiums and that bring down out-of-pocket costs. We must act urgently to prevent this tax increase facing American families if ACA credits expire. Once open enrollment begins November 1st, our struggling families who are already suffering out there, we know this can't wait. For the average Maryland family making $90,000 a year, premiums could rise by as much as $3,000 annually. That is a crippling increase. We're also just a few days away from running out of funding for food assistance under SNAP. The Trump administration has access to SNAP contingency funds to cover most of November. Doing so is even required by law, but they have indicated that they will not. The Trump administration could also transfer funds from elsewhere, but they won't. As a result, 680,000 Marylanders who rely on SNAP, including nearly 270,000 children, stand to go hungry. Again, if you have a question tonight, please press *3 at any time or type your question online. If I'm being candid, my frustration goes far beyond the shutdown itself. After nearly 300 days, Congress has yet to pass a single bill to lower costs for American families and small businesses. That is simply unacceptable. It's also unacceptable that Speaker Johnson has yet again canceled votes. 4 weeks of canceled votes in total. The House of Representatives hasn't taken a single vote since mid-September after being on recess for all of August. That means we're not negotiating on a budget, but we're also not addressing the real issues that families face: higher energy bills, higher grocery prices, higher rent, and childcare costs. We can't compromise if we're not even talking. That's why I have been consistently calling on congressional leaders and President Trump to come back to Washington, to sit down together, and to get the government reopened. I'll close my opening here by saying how much I appreciate your engagement tonight. I look forward to hearing your questions, your concerns, and your ideas, and to answer as many questions as we can in our hour together. This time is yours. There are no other speakers. It is just a night to engage with you, our constituents. And so with that, we'll turn things back over to our moderator to begin our questions and answers.
Thank you, Congressman. And if you happen to join the call a little late, I want to remind you, if you would like to ask the Congressman a question this evening, please press *3 on your telephone keypad now or at any time during the call. And if you'd like to keep up with what the Congressman is working on, you can press *6 to subscribe to the Congressman's newsletter. Congressman, our first caller is Nicholas. Nicholas, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Nicholas.
Yes. Hello, Congressman Olszewski. First off, thank you to you and your team for doing this. We can't voice our opinions without you. It is valuable work, and from the bottom of my heart, and I know many of our constituents think the same way, thank you, thank you, thank you. What can we do to spin the rhetoric that the Republicans are throwing? Speaker Johnson saying it's a Democratic shutdown. We know it's not. How can we spin the rhetoric to make it obvious to the Americans that this truly is the Republicans who are holding the government hostage as a bargaining chip, and it's not the Democrats' fault? And how do we make it plainly obvious to people who are impacted the most that it's not us, it's them?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And I think that's been one of the most frustrating parts of the conversation, especially when Speaker Johnson and others say, just pass a clean CR. I mean, first of all, I think that we are right to raise this issue of increases of taxes and fees on people who will have their healthcare costs spike in the new year. That will be crushing for working families. But even if you set that aside, the House did not vote on a clean CR. The provisions put forth in the Senate are not clean CRs. As I mentioned in my opening, and I think how you can help is actually helping to tell this story. What we voted on contained more than those $9 billion of cuts from the last continuing resolution, from the last bipartisan budget deal, where both parties shook hands and walked away from the table. There were issues in that budget that Democrats liked, that Republicans liked. There were issues in that budget that Democrats didn't like and Republicans didn't like. But that's how this process is supposed to work. And so instead, what we've seen is $9 billion of cuts in everything from public broadcasting to foreign aid that the president and Republicans came back and eliminated unilaterally. That does not count the $1 billion more that the president is withholding or canceling in those energy projects across the country that are specifically targeted at Democratic-led states and Democratic-led jurisdictions. For me, this is such an important point. This has to be a bright line in our conversations and negotiations. Even people like Senator Lisa Murkowski, other Republicans in the House have said there's no way that they would agree to a CR without those protections. Because what we could see very easily without these protections is that this administration could turn back around, cut additional things from the budget, eliminate more programs, and continue firing our federal workers. Maryland's already at the forefront. We've seen 15,000 employees fired before the shutdown, the most in the country. And so I think what I would say to you and to everyone is like, let's work in facts. And the best way that you can help me in telling the true story about what's happening is to put those facts out there so that we can have an honest conversation about how we move forward together.
Thank you, Congressman. Next question comes from Daniel of Baltimore. Daniel, you're live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Daniel.
Yes, my name is Linda, and I am with Daniel Minnick, and I am questioning the fact that one of the big issues that seems to be a holdup is the free health insurance for illegal aliens. I myself am retired. Between my Social Security and my pension, I get about $1,300 a month, $500 a month of which I have to pay for supplemental insurance and prescription. How come, as a citizen, I can't also get free health insurance?
I appreciate the question, and I think it underscores how we need to do more as a Congress in general to make healthcare more affordable. What I will say is that healthcare is not under federal law. Anyone who is undocumented is not eligible for ACA subsidies and is not eligible for Medicaid. That is existing federal law. If anyone is receiving those benefits, they are doing so in violation of the law. And whether it's in that case or any other example of fraud, I think that should be investigated and people should be held accountable for that. What I can say is that anyone under legislation signed by President Ronald Reagan is allowed to have emergency care. Emergency rooms are not allowed to turn away those individuals who show up, mostly because they often operate in those emergency situations. But what I can tell you is that if the subsidies that we are fighting for in this budget fight go away, the crushing costs that you're already experiencing are going to go up, unfortunately, even further if you are on the Affordable Care Act. If you are someone who is lucky enough to have private insurance, as individuals choose not to re-enroll because the subsidies are gone and because healthcare costs go up so much, we're going to see a lot of private insurance costs go up significantly as well. I believe in Maryland, we're staring at as much as 18% for those lucky enough to still have health coverage through their employer. So this is an urgent issue. I think it's important, and I really appreciate the question that we clarify that those who are undocumented are actually not eligible and should not be receiving ACA subsidies or Medicaid under existing law. And again, if that's happening, it's happening in violation of federal law. And again, I think your question underscores how we have to do more to make healthcare more affordable. So thank you for it so much.
Thank you, Congressman. Your next question comes from Ben. Ben, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Ben.
Hello. Yes, Congressman. So I have a question. I am a young person who is, I think, a little bit more politically active than my peers. Growing up, we're all told, oh, there's checks and balances. The system's going to work itself out. You just have to follow the existing structures and, everything will be fine. What are we as constituents supposed to do when those methods are flagrantly ignored and, I don't know what I should be doing if voting. I mean, I voted to not have this stuff happen, and here we are. So, like, I don't know what I'm supposed. What are we supposed to do now?
Well, I'll first say thank you, Ben, for your engagement. I think that's wonderful. I try to teach my young people in my American government class to stay engaged, to be engaged. And what I would say is, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is an administration that has ignored court orders, even from the Supreme Court, that has gone after perceived political enemies and critics like Jimmy Kimmel trying to silence free speech. We've seen troops dispatched to American cities and then call it training grounds. We've seen the illegal firing of federal workers. We're seeing the demolition of the East Wing at a cost of $300 million when there's people in America who are not knowing where their next meal is coming from. And so it is deeply concerning to me as well. And what I would say to you is not only to continue to vote, and I think voting in the next election is critical for whomever you think is appropriate, but also I really was encouraged to see people write to Congress, people show up to town halls just like this, people showing up to rallies and protests and expressing their concern about what their government is doing. I think that free speech and protesting is one of the most fundamental rights that we have as American citizens. It is one of the things that keeps our democracy afloat and alive. And so I would say continue to speak out. And if you do one thing every day, and especially if you do it about an issue that you're passionate about, one thing every day, whether it's a post on social media, whether it's something original or something you reshare, whether it's going to a town hall like this or attending a protest or a rally, it's writing to and talking to members of Congress, calling in. I think that it is so important that you stay engaged in this moment so that we say that what's happening is not who we are as Americans. It's not what our democracy is about, and gets us back to that place where we are working together to move forward together. So I appreciate your call. I appreciate your involvement.
Thank you, Congressman. Folks, just a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, you may press *3 on your telephone keypad now or at any time during the call. And if you're streaming this event, and you can submit your question by typing your name and your question below the streaming player. Congressman, next caller is Mary. Mary, you're live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Mary.
Hello. My question is more related to something local that affects Marylanders every day, and that is what is the status of the rebuilding of the Francis Scott Key Bridge? I mean, it's impacting traffic. It has impacted the state economically, and is the funding going forward? What is the status? So that we have some hope that we can return to what it was before.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I will say it's both a local and a national issue, Mary. And it's what I was trying to say earlier in terms of why I think budget deals have to be stuck to. And when we shake hands and walk away, we have to trust that the Key Bridge funding, which is in law to be fully reimbursed after the state provides its insurance money and after there's dollars put forward from any recoveries from lawsuits against the Dolly and its owners and operators, that the federal government will be there, as we do all the time in the wake of disaster, to finish the funding for the rest of the bridge. But it was a law that was passed by a bipartisan Congress, and I, under normal circumstances, would say I have no concerns. However, I would be dishonest if I didn't share that I am concerned about Key Bridge funding. President Trump has explicitly threatened that funding, and the Secretary of Transportation doubled down on it in a letter to Governor Moore. I share the goals of rebuilding the Key Bridge on time and on budget, if not early and under budget. We have to be responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we have to be transparent about that progress and what is allowing for accelerations or causing delays. I'd love to see delivery metrics and goals as we continue the demolition and the rebuild. We have to get it done as quickly as possible. I certainly feel the bridge being gone in my commute to and from the District of Columbia to DC to do my work. So this is really important. And I think it's important both for us, for economic development, for jobs, for childcare, just for living. But it's also a huge, really important artery for the Mid-Atlantic and for our country. So we have to make sure it stays in. It's the largest infrastructure project in Maryland, one of the largest infrastructure projects on the East Coast. And so I am fighting tooth and nail to make sure that funding stays in place, along with the rest of the Maryland delegation, our senators, the rest of the representatives. And so it is also why, though, in this budget fight, in this shutdown, having those budget deals stick, those past agreements stick, is so important to me, because I would hate to see the funding change. But currently it's there. I feel like we can preserve it, but we should be worried about it at this point until we have more protections moving forward.
Thank you, Congressman. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier we mentioned that this is an interactive forum, and we're eager to hear from you this evening. In addition to addressing your questions, we have poll questions for you this evening. Poll questions help us learn a little bit more about you so that we're better able to assist you. So our first question to you this evening, and please respond using your telephone keypad, we'd like to know, are you worried about your healthcare costs increasing if the Affordable Care Act, ACA, premium tax credits aren't extended? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're unsure. Again, I'll repeat the question for you. Are you worried about your healthcare costs increasing if the Affordable Care Act premium tax credits aren't extended? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're unsure. And we thank you in advance for your participation. All right, Congressman, our next question comes from Althea of Owings Mills. Althea, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead. Althea, you are live on the call. Please go ahead. All right, Congressman, I want to ask the question on behalf of Althea. Althea asks, what is going to happen with the SNAP benefits program?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Althea. Also a very important one. I do worry deeply about what's going to happen to SNAP recipients in our district and across this country after Friday, which is when the current federal funding is set to expire. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, the Trump administration could tap into up to $5 or $6 billion of SNAP contingency reserves that Congress intentionally put in place just for days and moments like this. It's actually required by law that they do, but they have said that they will not. The administration could transfer funds from other programs, but they have said that they won't. We know that as a result, there are almost 700,000 Marylanders who rely on that program, including almost 300,000 children who stand to go hungry as a result. I've been talking to people like the Maryland Food Bank, other food pantries and providers who are seeing overwhelming demand already from federal workers who aren't being paid. When SNAP benefits go away, that's only going to get worse. And so we know that Governor Moore has said Maryland would be prepared to cover SNAP benefits if there were guarantees that would be reimbursed in the future. That's happened in prior shutdowns. But again, the Trump administration has said that states will not receive reimbursement. So currently in Maryland, those benefits are set to expire. And it's on top of what happened already in what I call the big ugly bill, which already included $300 billion of cuts to food supports. It's the largest cut to food assistance in American history. And so I think all of this is heartless and cruel, but unfortunately unsurprising. I think feeding people is one of the most basic things that we can do as a society. And so I really appreciated people like Mayor Scott stepping up today with his announcement. But I got to be honest with you, states and local governments alone will not be able to fill this void. There will be people in this country, if we don't take action, who will go hungry. I will say one other thought to conclude this question is that this is one of the many reasons why it's so frustrating that Speaker Johnson doesn't have us in session in the House, we could very easily take up legislation that would require the continued funding of SNAP benefits across America. I think that would pass overwhelmingly in the House and the Senate. Even as we have these larger discussions about the budget and the shutdown, I think we could very easily pass things like paying our air traffic controllers and our troops. So we just need to get back to work, and we need to get back to talking to each other. But in the meantime, I'm really worried about what's going to happen with SNAP, and I appreciate your question as well.
Thank you, Congressman. Next caller is Joy. Joy, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Joy.
Hi, thank you, Congressman, for your time this evening. You've mentioned a few times about sort of who is at fault for the current shutdown, and unfortunately, I think in our current political climate, people's minds aren't going to change about that rhetoric, regardless of what sort of objective facts are. So I'm wondering what you would consider a reasonable compromise, even if it might mean that Democrats, quote unquote, lose the standoff, but ultimately are able to get the government back open again. What are issues that you would be willing to bring up to the table in order to reopen the government?
Yeah, Joy, I appreciate that. I will say, for me, it starts with talking. And unfortunately, the House has not been in session. We're coming up on 5 weeks. Compromise requires give and take on both sides. No one gets everything that they want. And so I realize that we might not get everything that we want on this healthcare issue. I think that, for example, one area that is ripe for compromise is that we adjust the subsidy thresholds. I don't think people making hundreds of thousands of dollars or millionaires should be getting subsidized by the federal taxpayer. But again, I think there's a lot of room there. But the bright line for me goes back to future cuts. It does no good to have a budget agreement that then the president and/or one side, after shaking hands, comes back and cuts the budget or cuts programs or fires more employees by themselves. So that for me is something that I just can't give on. And it goes back to why this isn't just a clean CR. It's not normal times, normal circumstances. But I do think Democrats have to be willing to think about where we can compromise, especially on this healthcare issue. I've heard the president say he wants to do something about it. I've heard I don't agree often with people like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she and I agree wholeheartedly on needing to act on addressing these expiring subsidies to keep healthcare affordable for working families. So there has to be somewhere in that space where I think we can all agree. But I really, for me, it just goes back to let's actually get in a room and be adults about this. I think this is why people become so frustrated with government, is because they see us not talking, not being adults, not trying to be reasonable. And it's my hope that we can get there.
Thank you, Congressman. And folks, again, to ask a question this evening, *3 on your telephone keypad. And if you would like to subscribe to the Congressman's e-newsletter, press *6. Congressman, next question comes from Troy. Troy, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much, Congressman, for providing this forum to be able to ask questions. I guess just and picking at what you're talking about already, it is a little frustrating. I think the Republicans have said, hey, we'll negotiate, but we're not going to negotiate while we're being held hostage from not passing a clean CR. I know you say it's not clean. They say it is. This is part of the problem that we all have, not knowing what's in each of these. But I guess what would be the problem with getting federal workers back to work is the most important thing. Why not get them back to work and sit down and negotiate as you have in the past? Because if someone's going to break the rules or go outside the rules, it doesn't matter whether you do it now or later. The most important is get the federal workers back to work. So why not do that and take that off the table?
Yeah, I really appreciate your question, Troy, and really not to be too redundant to folks on tonight, but I think I can't underscore enough just how important that point is. I think that getting our federal workers back to the job and getting paid, because many of them are working without pay, including my staff who are doing amazing work. It's why I actually have also said I will not take a paycheck so long as federal workers don't have access to that, because I just think that we should not be treated any differently than federal workers in this circumstance. But what would be heartbreaking and even harder to see for me is to see us put federal workers back to work, have them get their paychecks, to then have the program in which they work unilaterally cut, to see more employees fired, I believe in many cases illegally. I just hope, and this is my sincere hope, and again, this has been my bright line from before the shutdown throughout the shutdown. What's most important to me is to protect the funding that we already agreed to. That's the whole point of a continuing resolution, is it is the same level, it is the same programs, it is the same employees that we had prior in the prior budget. We just continue that budget until we have a new deal. And so I do think it's important to have an agreement that is much more ironclad so that we don't see more firings unilaterally, more programs cut unilaterally. And I think that's a fair ask because it is specifically budget related, and it makes it a clean resolution. It says if we agree to continue funding at the level we funded before, then we're going to have that stick until there's a new deal. And so I think for me, that is a baseline to have that compromise on other issues that we talked about. And so I think that for me is a reasonable ask. I will leave it to the constituents of the second district to agree or disagree. But I know that I'm willing to sit down with anyone, anytime, anywhere in Baltimore, in the Capitol, to reopen this government and to have these discussions. I think that as families grapple with this crushing cost of living increase, not just the government shutdown, we could be doing so much more if we were there working. So I appreciate the question. I hope that provides some level of clarity as to my thinking and as to why I think it's not just a clean resolution and why we can't just proceed. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressman. Next question comes from India. India, you're live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, India.
Good evening, Congressman. Thank you for having this town hall meeting. I definitely appreciate meetings like this. And I have recently noticed that the Trump administration has recently rescinded several Biden-era workforce development initiatives, including the American Climate Corps and various infrastructure grants. And as a small business owner in the human services field with like myself, what opportunities do you see for local providers like mine to collaborate with state and federal programs to strengthen community employment services if you guys are able to get back up the government?
India, thanks for that question. Workforce training and development, career development are issues that are near and dear to my heart. It's something that I worked very hard on as Baltimore County executive before coming to Congress. One of the first bills that I introduced and passed in Congress was actually done in a practical bipartisan way with Chairman Roger Williams of the Small Business Committee in Texas that actually seeks to better connect individuals to access workforce training and those who are connected to those job opportunities that they relate to. So it's important for both the people and businesses. I'm very proud of that work. It's passed the House. We're waiting for action in the Senate. And I think we need more of that bipartisanship. I would say give my office a call. We would be happy to connect you with folks who are doing that work and opportunities for you. And then I would say just generally, one of the places where we see a lot of opportunity is what we did in Baltimore County, where we made community college completely tuition free for almost every Baltimore County resident, so that anyone who wanted to pursue their passions can get the training that they needed to get a good paying job. And so that might relate to the work that you're doing. It might create opportunities. And otherwise, we are happy to work specifically with you to try to find those opportunities to elevate what you're doing and connect you with others in the same field. So really appreciate your call and your work as well.
Thank you, Congressman. And folks, we did mention that this is an interactive forum. We have another poll question for you. You can vote by responding on your telephone keypad. Our second poll question for you this evening: do you think Republicans have a responsibility to keep the government running and stop the shutdown? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're unsure. And I'll repeat that question. And again, you can vote using your telephone keypad. Do you think Republicans have a responsibility to keep the government running and stop the shutdown? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're unsure. All right, Congressman, we have an online question from Brian, and Brian asks, what can you do to help raise awareness about the growing food security problem in Maryland?
Yeah. Thank you, Brian, for that question. Food security is something I also care deeply about. We made school meals universal in Baltimore County when I was Baltimore County executive, so that we took away stigma. We made both breakfasts and lunches free and available to all of our students when I was county executive. We expanded Summer SNAP to all of our children across Baltimore County for summer meals as well. And so it's why I joined the mayor today in Baltimore to also announce those additional resources of $4 million to help bridge the gap. But it's already food security, and really let's just call it for what it is. Hunger has been everywhere in Maryland before the government shutdown, before the big ugly bill cut $300 billion federal supports in the years ahead for that. And before the SNAP benefits are set to expire on November 1st. Again, our community partners are stepping up to help people weather the storm. I also want to applaud Anthony Brown, our Attorney General, who filed lawsuit today against the administration for withholding the SNAP funding, even though they have an additional $6 billion to spend to continue those supports. Our office is ready to help connect any constituent with resources. So please, again, if you are dealing with hunger, if you cannot find food, please call our office. We are happy to share the resources we have. But this is really important. The cuts to SNAP were the thing during the reconciliation, the big ugly bill that I actually spoke on the floor, because we know how this is going to affect our working families, and we have to just keep finding a way to meet the need out there. It's significant, and in light of all that's happening, we know it's getting worse. So I want to thank so many of those out there who are lucky enough in a position to help. I've seen countless constituents step up and volunteer, help feed others. So thank you all for those of you who are helping it. But if you are in need of help, please also call us and we'll connect you with the right resources.
Thank you, Congressman. Next question comes from Joe. Joe, you're live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Joe.
Will Social Security beneficiaries receive their 2026 2.7% cost of living increase on time?
Yes, Joe. So that COLA, that cost of living adjustment, will be issued because in this case, Social Security benefit payments are not appropriated by Congress annually. They are considered mandatory spending that is funded by a dedicated payroll tax. I wish the increase were more. I know that seniors and those of you who have paid into the system are struggling, but I hope that the increase will be helpful to those of you who do receive it. I will say, because of the shutdown, if individuals have questions about their payments, things are very slow in a lot of agencies. Some people are taking longer. Other agencies aren't able to respond at all. But please continue to call us if you have questions like that. But yes, the COLA will be issued. Payment should continue. Although what I will say is that we will have to have a conversation, because without action, the increase is processed and will be fully paid now. But in not too many years down the road, we're going to see a significant gap between those payroll taxes and what's left in the trust fund for Social Security. So I'm concerned long-term about the solvency of the program. But in the short term, it is secure and those COLAs will be issued.
Thank you, Congressman. Next caller is Alan from Rindlesham. Alan, you're live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Alan.
Hi there, Congressman. We are in really unprecedented times in the sense that there's never been a president who has a dictatorship hold over his own party, and that being the Republican Congress and the Republican Senate. Every Republican is afraid to do the right thing and to question the inhumanity of saying, oh, we'll just stop SNAP benefits, even though there's $6 billion in the kitty to refocus that money so that people don't starve and children of all people don't go to bed hungry. My God! And the problem is on a human level that Donald Trump does not care, and he has. I used to think Mike Johnson was a good, faithful Christian man, but he does what Donald Trump tells him to do. And the bottom line is we will not have any shutdown. They're waiting for the Democrats to cave. The woman who's from Arizona has not been seated, and because she hasn't been seated as the 218th vote to have the Epstein files released, that's what's behind all of this. Trump has gone out of his way.
Oh. Hello?
Because of that, you have all these ramifications of what's going on. It's not a Democrat problem. It's the Democrats always cave to do the right thing. It's a Republican problem. But Donald Trump has more of a hold over his party because they're afraid. They are fearful of him. And that's never happened before in any presidency in the history of this country. Joe Biden didn't say, hey, unless the Democrats or the Republicans do this, we're going to not, if there's a hurricane or tornadoes, rebuild your cities.
Yeah.
So,
and thank you, Alan. I agree. There are any number of reasons to be concerned about. I'm going to try to answer at least one part of your question. I'm going to try to get to as many more calls as we have tonight as well. And that's the point you raised about Representative-elect Grijalva, who was elected now more than a month ago. She is begging to be sworn in, and Speaker Johnson just keeps moving the goalposts. It is denying the people of Arizona representation. It is outrageous. It goes against everything that I taught my American government students. And the only reason that I can think of, the only good reason, is that she represents the final vote on the discharge petition that would force a vote on the release of the Epstein files. Now, I want to applaud the 4 Republicans who have stepped forward, but the fact that the rest of the members of Congress on the Republican side who are supporting keeping Congress closed, refusing to swear in Representative-elect Grijalva to protect child sexual predators who were abused by rich, powerful, famous people is shameful. And so I was actually on the House floor last Friday demanding the Speaker administer the oath. I was ignored and I was denied. We literally took no action that day. And again, this is a House of Representatives that has not taken a single vote since September 19th. And so I share a lot of your concerns about being closed, about what the president's doing, and certainly about not getting Representative-elect Grijalva sworn in. So thank you for your question. Hopefully that at least answers that part of it. And Robin, I think we can move on to our next call.
Yes, sir. Folks, there's still time to ask a question. Please press *3 now on your telephone keypad to ask a question. And if you'd like to stay up to date with what the congressman is working on, you can press *6 to stay informed. And let's go ahead and take Leah next. Leah, you are live on the call with the congressman. Please go ahead.
Hi. Good evening, Congressman. Thank you for taking my call. As an essential federal worker, can you explain why the bill wasn't passed to pay essential workers that that have to report to work every day? Just the cost of, first, for not receiving a full check, not receiving a check at all since October 1st. The cost of gas and paying for childcare, college tuition, just things are just adding up. And for us to have to report to work every day, is really catching up to us. The morale around the workplace is not good at all. We feel like we're being punished for something that you know, is not being done between both Republicans and Democrats as far as trying to come together for the people. So just want to know if you can explain why the bill was not passed to pay at least essential workers. I know we're getting paid eventually once a bill and appropriations is passed. However, it's difficult for those that have to report to work right now with nothing. Thank you.
Yeah, Leah, and thank you for your service. I can't even imagine what you and so many others are going through. It's not fair. You and other federal employees are being treated as political pawns right now, and that's wrong. As you pointed out, and I think you know, it is existing law that furloughed employees, whether you're working or not, will absolutely get back pay. That was a bill that over 400 members of the House of Representatives voted for, including Speaker Johnson back when he was not Speaker. It was signed actually by President Trump in his first term. I support any effort to reinforce and guarantee that, but that is already existing law. It is why I'm not taking pay during the shutdown. I don't think members should. But I will say it also gets back to like why it's a problem that Speaker Johnson won't let us come back to work, because we could pass bills that says if employees are deemed essential and still have to come to work, you could be getting paid during the shutdown. There's nothing preventing that. There's nothing preventing military pay. There's nothing preventing SNAP benefits from continuing. These are all pieces of legislation that we could consider individually, even as we have a larger conversation around the shutdown, a larger conversation around healthcare, a larger conversation around protections in the budget. So it just goes back to why I think Congress has such a low approval rating generally, why people are disillusioned with politics is because there are ways that we can do this. But I will just tell you, in my 9 months of seeing it up close and personal has been very frustrating. And I am especially frustrated as a member of the House that I have a speaker who I did not vote for to be speaker, but I have a Speaker of the House who absolutely refuses to let us come to work and at least try to make progress on some of these issues. But again, I'm thinking of you, and if our office can be helpful, please give us a call.
Thank you, Congressman. Folks, we do have another poll question for you. We'd like to know, are you concerned about President Trump sending the National Guard to U.S. cities? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're unsure. Again, I'm going to repeat that question for you, and please vote using your telephone keypad. We want to know, are you concerned about President Trump sending the National Guard to U.S. cities? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you're unsure. Congressman, we have Eric on the line. Eric, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Eric.
Hi, I'm curious as to how you're going to personally help get the unredacted Epstein files released.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I will say that I am deeply concerned about the Epstein files. It is definitely feeling like a cover-up at this point. At a minimum, I think that the administration should immediately release any reference to the president in the Epstein files. Attorney General Bondi has already confirmed the president is in them. The president has said he's done nothing wrong. And so I think if that's the case, he should have no problem releasing them to the American public today. In fact, it's something that he should welcome the opportunity to clear his name and end any speculation once and for all. I think in whatever we do, we have to obviously redact the names of survivors or potential victims. But we also, and this is where I'm really trying hard, and this is what the Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, a Republican and a Democrat, have legislation that calls for all the files, without redactions, other than protecting survivors' identities, to be released. As Representative Massie has said, and this is a Republican that I agree with on this issue, Americans want transparency. They don't want smoke and mirrors. Survivors deserve justice, and the public deserves the truth. No one is above the law. And so the best way to get the full release of the unredacted files is to sign the petition, which I already have, to swear in Representative Grijalva. She would be the last signature to force a vote. It would pass the House and then go to the Senate for consideration. But that is what I'm doing. I support the House Oversight's effort, the House Oversight Committee's efforts as well, but I don't think what they're doing comes even close to transparency. And I have limited confidence that their efforts will ultimately lead to what the legislation that's before us would do. So that's really what I'm pushing, but also just saying if the president really wants to clear his name in all of this, he should welcome the opportunity and release references to him. But I appreciate the question.
Thank you, Congressman. Folks, we are creeping up on the top of the hour. We have time for one more question. Congressman, we've got Renee on the phone. Renee, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead, Renee. Hello, you're live on the call.
Hey, Renee.
So my question is real simple, Congressman. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to know, how is it that we're able to fund another country? We can give them 20 million or billion, I think it was 40 billion, but we can't fund our own country. It's not mathing.
The math isn't mathing.
Like
That's right.
No, I'm mathing.
Yeah, make it make sense. So President Trump has already given, and you had it right the second time, $20 billion of your money to bail out Argentina because he supports a certain candidate for president who's currently in trouble electorally. He's currently working on giving them another $20 billion. We just talked about how awful it is that we're not feeding hungry Americans. This is money that could have paid for several months of food assistance for the millions and millions of people who are about to lose their access to SNAP due to the government shutdown. It could have gone a long way to addressing the ACA subsidies. For me, this is clearly not America first. So when the president says he's America first, as Trump promised to do, I really don't see it. And so deeply concerning that we have money for things like this, but we are taking away healthcare. And let's remember what we're taking away healthcare for. The ACA subsidies are ending to pay for the tax credit extensions that go overwhelmingly to the ultra wealthy in this country. One of the largest wealth transfers in our country's history, from the working class to the ultra wealthy. And that's part of why they don't want to put these subsidies back in. But again, if we have this money for Argentina and to bail out one of President Trump's buddies, I think we can find a way forward to feed our families and make sure that folks have access to affordable health care.
Thank you, Congressman. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining today's telephone town hall with Congressman Johnny Olszewski. Congressman, I want to hand this call back to you for your closing remarks, sir.
Well, thank you again. I just want to take a moment to express my appreciation for the thousands of you who participated in our 5th town hall. And Robin, as always, I appreciate your efforts as our moderator tonight. I just want everyone listening to know that as your congressman, I believe in accountability, transparency, communication, and connectedness. And so I will offer frequent and varied opportunities to make sure we continue to connect throughout our term. Again, tonight is one of many ways I want to stay connected. But if you would also like to subscribe to my newsletter for updates on what's happening in Washington and the district, you can press *6 right now. And I know that there's been a lot of concern, hurt, frustration about what's happening across the country. I'll just leave you all with this thought as I conclude. In all things, it is better to hope than despair. And having had the conversation we all had tonight, and knowing that so many of you want to be engaged in that conversation and want to be part of building a stronger district, state, and country, gives me that hope. So thank you all so much. And Rob and I will pass it back to you.
Thank you, Congressman. It's a pleasure. Folks, if you'd like to stay up to date on the Congressman's work, any news, updates, I encourage you to follow him on Instagram, X, and Blue Sky at Rep Johnny O, as well as on Facebook at Rep Johnny Olszewski. You can also subscribe to the Congressman's e-newsletter online at olszewski.house.gov, or stay on the line and leave your name and an email address after the tone. Thank you and have a blessed evening. Good night, everyone.